Caplan, please.
Uh, we know that the Dover Parshat, it's Aleph based by us, that everything that happens is Bashgacha Protis. Everything a person sees, everything a person hears, everything that comes by his way is Omina Shomayim. It happened to be there's a shul in our neighborhood. Everybody knows Imre Shefer, which you can say on it. It's the center of Ruchnius in Har Nov, I think you could say. You think that's the right way of putting it?
Yes.
And we're the main Mokum Tefillah, at least in this part of Har Nov. And in front of Imre Shefer, there's a stand where somebody puts old books that he gathered from I don't know where. And he puts in a box. Anybody wants to take should put in 10 shekel, 10, 15 shekel. And there's a certain curiosity that people have. I don't know for everybody, but of course I and others that I know, to look and see what's there, what did he find this time? And I came across 2 volumes of the history books of Shimon Dubnov. I asked my son Yosef, did you ever hear of him? He said, yeah, of course, Dubnov. Yeah, I didn't get a chance to talk more. He doesn't look like he was a frum person. And it might have been even, I don't know if he believed in Torah Minat Shomayim. I don't even know that, but in these books you have to always make a palginon. You have to accept what you can and what the rest throw out. Anything that doesn't really have to do with Yiddishkeit you can read. And so I picked up these 2 books and I put in the 20 shekel, I think it was. It might have been 30 shekel even. And I took it. It's called it's probably many volumes he wrote, Divrei Yemei Am Olam. And this is the 9th volume. I wanted to say 2 interesting ideas. And then I wanted to also talk about just thoughts that I had about certain things. I don't know if we'll be able to fit in everything tonight, but we'll see what we can do. In this 9th volume on page 155, he's talking about, this volume is talking about the 19th century, which is the 1800s. And a little bit before that. So he talks about the rights of Jews. That means the Jews were we don't understand it. I mean, we never lived through this, but in Europe in the 19th century and before, so Jews were second-class citizens. They didn't have equal rights in Europe. He talks a lot about Germany over here. You weren't allowed to enter a city even. You had to have a special permit to enter cities. You weren't allowed to live in certain cities. In Vienna, Jews weren't allowed to live there. You needed a special permit to live there. You got a permit that was only for a month. Of course, Jews are smart. They're much smarter than these goyim with all their rules. So they used to get a permit, live there for a month, and then after it, so then they used to go out and then come back. They go out of the gates of the city and then come back afterwards, and then get permission from the guards to live there another month. I mean, they had tricks. Jews always they found a way, but we have to know. I'm thinking in general. I mean, it's this. You have to think about it more. In the 19th century, Goyim were Keseder reminding the Jewish people, you are Jews. We have to think, what does this mean? And nowadays, I don't think we can say that anymore, that they're reminding us that we're Jews. They're reminding us that, maybe they're reminding us that we have no right to have a state. And that we have to talk about separately, but up until the beginning of the 1900s, I think the Goyim were in Europe. I mean, when the main issue of Yidden was Europe, it was as if that the Goyim were the whole time reminding us, you're a Jew, you're different, you're different. But here, I'll get into that later, maybe, or in the next talk. But I wanted to say two interesting ideas about America that I read in page 154 and 155 in the 9th volume of Divrei Yemei Am Olam of Dubnov. So he talks about America, and he says that in America, in the 1790, George Washington wrote and said that nowadays we don't have to talk about tolerating the Jews. We're all one nation over here. Every human being has the right to live here and to have equal rights. That was what George Washington said. By the way, you don't really know if he was a great person or not. I read in a book about the Malach, about Rom Dov Ber Levin, that he saw somebody reading history books about George Washington. So he said, you should know he was a shikar. How did he know he was a shikar? He knew it was Ruach HaKodesh, he knew it. Anyway, but it's accepted. I mean, again, we started this talk that everything is Bashgacha Protzes Min Hashmayim. For some reason, he was designated to be the founder of America, of the United States of America. So he said that everybody has equal rights, and the Jews also. Now, the interesting idea that I want to say over here is that equal rights means that a Jew could have a government position. In Germany, a Jew couldn't have a government position. I don't know exactly what it means, a government position, but it means to work, nowadays in Ivrit, we would say to work in a Mishrad Memshalti, or to be a Pakid in a Mishrad Memshalti. Yeah, to give out the Ishurim, a license for different things, to do a certain thing, to put up a sign that you can park your car over here, and it gives the license to put up that sign, so a Jew couldn't do that, or whatever. So, he said, even in the time of George Washington, Jews already were able to have a government position and be generals in the army. In America, I don't know if there were, all the states weren't there yet in the time of George Washington. I don't think. There was one state, but the East Coast was in his time. So there was one state the Jews didn't have equal rights to have government positions and to be judges in the court. What state was that? Can you guess?
No, I can't.
Maryland, Baltimore. That's where I come from. That state did not, Jews in the time of George Washington did not yet have equal rights. Jews couldn't be judges. They couldn't be other government positions they have, because that because you believe in Yiddishkeit, you can't have government positions. Later on, in the year 1825, so we're talking in 1790 is when George Washington declared that everybody has equal rights. And Baltimore, Maryland, the state of Maryland, and especially Baltimore is the capital of Maryland, it says here. So, in 1825 it was accepted that Jews also have equal rights, just like everybody else. What does that mean? That means that the place where I come from, it's as if, usually it's accepted in America that the center of Yiddishkeit is New York, which there's a lot of truth to that. But it comes out over here that Baltimore, where I come from, so that was a place where it took many more years until that means there was a longer time that the Goyim were still busy reminding the Yidden, you should know you're a Yid, you're different, you're Asher Bochar Bonum. I mean, it says in Pasuk, Bakomim alay mereim tishman ha'oznoi. It says it in Mizmor Shir Yom HaShabbos. When the mereim, the bad ones, the goyim, when they're standing up against me, tishman ha'oznoi. We should listen to what they're saying, listen to what they're telling you. There's a message. Hashem is sending through them a message. And that means that the message that Hashem was sending, and he was saying, you should know you're Jews. You should know you're Asher Bochar Bonu. You should know that Hamavdil ben Kodesh L'chol ben Yisrael Lo Amim. It goes on you. You are Mavdil ben Yisrael Amim. That stayed for many more years in Maryland, and especially in Baltimore, where I come from. That means there was a certain school in this state, has a certain hashgacha pratis on feeling the mila of a yid, the greatness of a yid. This is how we can't just read history books just like an amor, just to know the dry facts. We have to look at what was Hashem saying in history. What was Hashem saying in the way things were happening? And I think that in our city, we could be proud of the fact that there was another 35 years from 1790 when it was declared that everybody's equal rights. There was another 35 years that it was reminded to Yidden that you're Yidden, you're different. And that's why we see that Ada Yom, that Yiddishkeit is building up and building, Seder, growing and growing in Baltimore, Maryland. And from the yeshiva in Baltimore, it came out big Talmidei Chachomim. Bekim B'Shas came out from there. Good. You'll say that there was in other places also. Of course, there was in other places, but there's a certain. I mean, Bemes, I don't really know too much because I left Baltimore when I was 9 years old. But you see that the Stipler, he left the city, Arn Stipe, also when he was 9 years old, he left that city. And his whole life, he was called the Stipler because of where he grew up for 9 years. Maybe I could also say something for those 9 years that I was there, that there's a certain tzivyon, a certain color, a certain demus for the Talmid Chacham of Baltimore. They're not, I would think that they're not so held up by the yeshivish ruach that you have to stay on one daf of Gemara.
Rabbi Kaplan,